everyone doing out there? Welcome to a Word Hole Media presentation of Major League A-Holes. We are back, baby!
We're back. You're in the hole with Major League A-Holes at majorleagueaholes.com. Oh my God. It's been about 3 months. We were originally going to do a first quarter overreaction show that eventually went to a first third of the season overreaction show. Half the season is now well past. We have like 60, 63 games left, something like that.
Is that it? Thank God.
We're basically at the 2/3 point already. We're at the All-Star break, but we are back. We had to take a 3-month hiatus for some serious life shit. Actually on both of our ends, which is really fucked up. But we are back though. Those things definitely took precedence over baseball and the podcast, but we are happy to be returning now. And it kind of is apropos after the All-Star break. This is a thirsty Thursday night. I am drinking my customary Surly Furious.
I'm drinking.
And what do you got over there?
The champagne beers. Miller High Life. I'm a classy guy.
The High Life. Nice.
I'm living the High Life. I'm back in the High Life because we're back on this podcast.
I'm excited to be talking baseball again. There was a time where I did not give a single fuck about baseball, and I'm ready to talk. I'm ready to talk about a lot of shit. There's been so much shit that's happened, and emphasis on the word shit, considering the combined records of the 5 teams we cover are 70 games below 500.
Yeah, we're pretty good again this year.
Yeah, it's pretty much a mirror of last season in many different ways. So baseball in a tough time. Baseball let us both down, but we're still here talking about it. I guess I'll never quit baseball. We have to do it. It's too good not to. But one thing that's changed since we last joined you is we've kind of tried to expand a little bit of our Twitter presence and kind of curate it for specific fan interests. Now it's not just at Major League A-Holes or at Sox type thing on Twitter. I also set up a Cubs only Twitter feed, Cult of Cub. Of course, Tigers are bold English D as opposed to old English D. I even did a A's Twitter feed called fucking_A's. That's just so if you don't give a fuck about one of these teams, you can just go to that Twitter feed. You can also check out our YouTube page, which we've done for quite a while now. We've got specific channels or specific playlists for each of the 5 teams we cover. So again, if you don't give a shit about 4 of the 5 teams we cover, which is probably many of you, we do curate that to make it really simple for you to catch up on our thoughts on each individual team instead of trying to digest all our bullshit in one fell swoop. So just wanted to put that out there. I guess other than that housekeeping there, we might as well go ahead and jump into the news.
I know this isn't on the list, but did you watch the All-Star game?
It's going to come up here. I think it was on. I wasn't really paying too close of attention.
I didn't.
Like with the home run derby. It seems like one of the. I guess I've been losing interest over time. I think everyone has. This seemed like far less interesting than even last year or years prior. It's just sort of losing momentum.
Yeah.
We'll get into it in aesthetics eventually, but the uniforms were ridiculous. At least in my opinion. You can share yours as well, but that doesn't help. I really miss the idea of the players wearing their home uniforms or road uniforms so you can know who the fuck they are. I am visually challenged, so when the entire team out there is wearing the same uniform, I don't know exactly who is playing right field or who's been subbed in and out unless the announcers are doing a very good job. Where when they were wearing the original uniforms or their home or away uniforms, it was very obvious who was who. It was very cool. So fuck you, MLB. I have heard that they're going to talk about that. Rob Manfred's opened the idea of going back to the traditional uniform wearing in the All-Star game, at least. But that was supposed to be part of my aesthetic segment that's going to come up later here. But we typically set up the order of how we talk about talk about our teams based on our a-hole standings, but everyone is shit. Actually, three of our four teams are almost have the same record. I think
Yeah.
my Tigers are 47-50. Your Giants have the same record, and Cubs are a half game behind that. So
Yeah.
kind of just threw this up in a hat. We're just going to start with the Tigers for no real reason, but Tigers 47-50 is actually their best record at the break since 2016. So the incremental progress has continued over the years. When we left off in April, I was just begging the Tigers to get off to a decent start and not bury themselves in the standings like they have the previous seasons. They did that. They had a great April, above 500 for the first time in for fucking ever. Problem is, they went to shit in May and most of June. However, they are coming off maybe their hottest stretch of the season, winning 8 out of the last 10 games going to the break, including
Yes.
incredible two walk-off wins in a row against the LA Dodgers,
That
which
was
is just
awesome.
too fucking funny. They looked solid the whole week. They actually did really well against their division leading rivals, the Cleveland Guardians, beat up on them, who I feel like they're a house of cards. I guess I'll get into that in a second, but the Tigers aren't too far off what I was thinking. I before the season started, I was predicting they would win the division, of course. Uh, I didn't think they would win it because they were going to be a 95 game winning team. I thought they'd be just a little bit above 500. Right now, they're just a little bit below 500, so they're trailing a little bit where I expect them to be. The big difference is how fucking good Cleveland has been and
What
how
the fuck?
fucking good the Royals have been. I did not see any of that coming. You know, the Cleveland's had one of the best records in the American League the whole
Yeah,
season,
I know.
and I did not see that coming at all. Royals, I kind of poo-pooed all of their offseason moves. They spent like $105 million on free agents that I thought were all very mediocre, but that has paid off so far, at least. I feel like there's going to be a market correction here. Or maybe I'm just too tied to my own original thought process and can't admit defeat. But I feel like those two teams are going to come back to earth. The Twins are pretty much what I thought they'd be. They are definitely still a bit better than the Tigers, unfortunately, but I just thought the Tigers would be in the mix, and they're just not because of those unforeseen, outstanding performances by most of the division. You could argue the AL Central is one of the best divisions in baseball instead of one of the worst as it's traditionally been or always perceived. So that's been kind of jarring. So I guess that's where I'm at with the Tigers. I'm not too disappointed with their performance. I am a bit. Their starting pitching has been great as we thought. Their bullpen has been hit and miss. That's kind of the whole story of baseball. The offense has just been dreadful, and I thought they would take a step forward this year with a promising young core. Unfortunately, the centerpiece of that one, Spencer Torkelson, is not even in the major leagues at this point. It took him a month to get his first home run, and he has subsequently been demoted to AAA Toledo and isn't doing a whole lot there. I kind of remember you and I talking preseason or Nostradamus predictions, kind of just not even thinking about it. It's like, well, Torkelson's going to be even better this year after
Yeah,
coming off of 31 home runs and 90 plus RBI. It's like, well, he's on his way. And it couldn't have been more the opposite. And it's now to the point where kind of worry about his career. I mean, is he done? Is he officially a bust at this point? Because he can't even get back out of AAA after being
right.
sent down. So that's kind of amazing. Kenta Maeda has been a complete disaster as a
Never
free
liked
agent.
that move. Never liked it.
I didn't mind it because it was only 2 years. 1 year would have been much preferred. The one ray of light is that he was demoted to the bullpen and was tremendous on the last day of before the All-Star break, pitching the 3 1/3, I think, against the Dodgers, and looked as effective as a long reliever as you could possibly hope for. So maybe that's a role that he can dive into, but when you've got him signed for 2 years and $26 million, I think that's not really what you're looking for out
Right.
of that. But if he can contribute at all, that would be nice. But on the bright side, I mean, we were starting this out so negatively, but what the fuck else? But on the bright side, at least, Riley Green has lived up to all the hype. He was voted in to the All-Star game by the players, which is kind of the ultimate honor. If the fans are too ignorant to understand who should be in the All-Star game, the
Which they
players are
are.
not. Yeah, and they clearly are if they didn't voted Riley Green. But Riley Green's got a 4 WAR better. I think it's a whole WAR better than a whole win better than Jose Ramirez. It's kind of astounding. They have really similar stats except for steals, but and home runs. But Riley Green was voted in, so that was cool. I think he really appreciated that honor. But the real story of this first half is Tarik Skubal, and you and I talked about him preseason a lot. I think did you pick him up in
He's on my
fantasy?
fantasy team, yeah.
Yeah, you put your money where your mouth was, as he is clearly on his way to the AL Cy Young, at least at this point. It's really not a question. It's kind of a slap in the face, I thought, even though it's not that big a deal, that Bruce Bochy chose not to start him in the All-Star game when it was clearly obvious he's the best pitcher in the American League.
Yeah.
He gave kind of a seniority vote to Corbin Burns, which was just the most convoluted logic you could imagine. I'd be much more upset if it was something that meant a little bit more than just starting the American League for the American League in the All-Star game. But the big thing that's come up, obviously, are trade rumors suddenly surrounding Tarik Skubal, which I'm not sure how much you've heard about that. It is the biggest topic in Detroit right now. Let me go on record before we start this conversation. Is I do not want to trade Tarik Skubal. He is still under 2 years of control after this season.
Yeah.
He is clearly right now. I would call him the best pitcher in baseball, certainly in the American League. His upside is tremendous. His current his current performance is the best. So, and the idea that he's under control for 2 more years after this is
Yeah.
unbelievable.
I mean, if you're in the middle of what we believe the Tigers are in the middle of, and to your point, they've had their best record since 2016, so that's major improvement. Yeah,
I'd call it incremental
yeah,
since they still are below 500, but
yeah, but
it
weren't
is improvement.
they were like what 12 games below or something last year at this time? I don't know. I don't
Yeah,
know what
something
it
like
is,
that.
but anyway, double digits. But this is the guy you keep building around. And we're going to get
Well,
into a similar conversation when we get to the South Side, but it's
yes.
like you got this guy under control.
The idea, yeah, I'm on board. You and I are speaking the same language. The only reason that I would trade Tarik Skubal is if there was such a ridiculous offer put on the table that it was like literally the Godfather offer. It's an offer you couldn't refuse. A franchise changing uh, batch of prospects that it was just so outrageously in the Tigers' favor that you could not turn it down.
Well,
You'd be a fool to turn it down.
I think that could, if the trade rumors are true, because I feel like there's so many fucking trade rumors right now. I'm just like, just shut the fuck up on ones that don't make sense, sort of like this one.
Well, I think there is one that does make sense, and this
who's
is
it
what's
with? Who's it with?
This would be with the Baltimore Orioles.
Heard of them? They're pretty
And
good.
There's been multiple reports. The rumors you're talking about started with Tom Verducci from Sports Illustrated, who I'm so glad none of these rumors are coming from Bob Nightingale, because it would just clearly be clickbait, just throwing weird shit out there. I have no reason to discount anything Tom Verducci has to say. I haven't seen Ken Rosenthal, the highest authority, I feel, in baseball reporting. I haven't seen him comment too much about it. John Morosi is another one that's commented on this. Verducci mentioned both the Baltimore Orioles and the Los Angeles Dodgers, which there are aspects of those are very interesting. Not similar offers would be coming from those teams, just because obviously Baltimore has one of the youngest cores of major league players right now. They also have the best farm system in baseball, but they're the top of their farm system is they're all ready to come to the majors. They just can't break through their starting group. They just have
Right.
so much young talent. It's crazy. So the Orioles are have reason to be able to deal some of their top prospects because they're blocked. That's what it comes down to. Um, if they so chose, or if the right situation arose for them. They also happen to be crushed by injuries to their starting rotation and are have no left-handed starters that I know of. So the the matchup couldn't be more perfect in a it's a perfect storm almost for how this trade could actually come together. I think that's and then the reporting from both Verducci and Morosi says, they are actually in talks, and both the Dodgers and the Orioles have made, or at least have approached Scott Harris of the Tigers about making a deal for Skubal. The beauty
Hmm.
of it for Harris is he does not need to do anything. He's not going to them. Oh my God, we got to trade this guy before we lose him for nothing. We've got him for this season and 2 more seasons. So he can just let offers come in. And the idea that it's not just Baltimore is very intriguing because that leads to a bidding war potentially, which I've even seen the Red Sox thrown in there as well, potentially in the mix. And again, we're still 10 days away from the trading deadline. So that's going to be a fascinating one. Again, I want to reiterate, I do not want to trade Tarik Skubal unless it's something that would just change the franchise. What's been thrown out there and could potentially happen is, and if I was Scott Harris, I would, say thanks for calling, but unless you throw in Jackson Holiday, Kobe Mayo, and their top catcher prospect, or another, when I think their third top prospect is a catcher, but give me your top three prospects, and then we'll talk. That's the starting point. Just because he's in that position, he's like, I don't have to do anything. In a way, I think that's the extreme. What I've read is that the Orioles would be potentially interested in moving two of their top prospects, but not three necessarily. I would say, if I'm Scott Harris, give me all three, give me four, and we'll back it down from there if we have to. But the idea that the Tigers could get the number one prospect in baseball, a shortstop, which is a desperate need considering they've had Javi Baez there for the last 2.5 years, who is the worst hitter in baseball now. Uh, the idea that they could fill in either third base or potentially first base with Cody Mayo, uh, that the idea they could then eventually have five of the top 15 prospects in baseball when you combine them with the Tigers' two in the top 15 with Max Clark and Jackson Jobe. It would be the most ridiculous. It would be a trade he would have to make, and everyone would understand. As much as we love Tarik Skubal, you'd have to make that deal. It would be a franchise changing move that I think could be. It'd be tough for both sides, but I think it's palatable for each because the Orioles would have Skubal for not just this year, but 2 more years in their window of contention. They would have Tarik Skubal, the best pitcher in baseball, for 3 postseasons potentially. That makes sense. What's the point of having the best farm system if you don't use it to put yourself in the best position to win the fucking World Series? And they are on the precipice of that opportunity. So there's logic there. I feel like I'm not just just reading ridiculous internet rumors or piling on. It's intriguing for sure, and I
Right.
believe
Yeah.
fairly realistic. The other side of that is the Dodgers, which they don't have the prospect capital that the Orioles have, but what they do have is a couple prospects that would definitely be interesting to anyone. They could also have unlimited budget where they could eat the contract of one Javi Baez if Scott Harris demanded one or two of their top prospects and demanded they take Javi Baez and his $90 million, whatever's left in his originally 5-year deal, $140 million deal. The Dodgers could eat that. They could handle that. What the fuck do they care about $90 million? That's nothing. They also have a need at shortstop as they tried to move Mookie Betts back to shortstop and he got hurt, and I don't think he was all that effective at shortstop. So Javi Baez obviously is a terrible hitter, but he is still a fantastic defensive player. So that there's some validity to that offer as well. So I don't know. I don't know what to believe. You've got a much. I feel like I'm trying my very best to be unbiased and not pie in the sky or not trying to overstate what the real position is. I don't. You've seen the rumors. What do you think is real? What do you think makes sense? What do you think I'm way out over my skis on this? What are your thoughts from afar?
No, I'm in the same boat over here. You know,
You've got the
with there
crochet
we got the
issues, yeah,
crochet and if you're comparing stats, they're right with one another
yeah.
statistically, you know, and
It's very close.
the
Yeah,
same teams are all involved. And it's all the Sox are doing the same thing because there's no reason to move them unless the price is ridiculous. And that's what you do. So, how desperate are you? And we know a smart team who's got, like the Orioles, who's got a cog that they can't get these players up because they're just too good. Oh, I feel so bad for you.
yeah.
Um, do it. But, like, don't. It's their job to try to not give up that much. But at the end of the day, they're going to, I'm sure the Yankees are probably involved in some way too in
Well,
all
I've
these. I
heard.
know the
I've
Yankees are big on the Sox radar, but like I'm sure the funniest thing about this is you got a Tigers team who I'm going to give you some good news in a few minutes about. I think your theory on things leveling out is going to happen, evening out
ooh,
in the Central. I've got some good news
I
for you
like
coming
it.
up, but
Okay.
you've got one team that could make with a good second half could be in the conversation, you know, for maybe a playoff spot. I got another team with this great pitcher who's just not going anywhere and really is in full rebuild mode. But for the White Sox, the question, is like, do you just hold on to them and rebuild around them? Where in the Tiger situation, it's like, if we can get that haul, we're going to be the AL Central favorite next year.
Well, and the
We're going to
Tigers
be a
have
favorite in baseball next year.
that's the thing. The
So,
Tigers have the pitching depth that might be able to absorb losing the best pitcher in baseball. They've got Jackson
right.
Jobe, the top pitching prospect in baseball, probably coming up late this year. Um, they've also shown that Chris Federer is the pitching whisperer, as he's not only taken Eduardo Rodriguez and Michael Lorenzen last year, but now Jack Flaherty turned his career around. That is actually another big trade chip that's out there that could be even packaged with Tarik Skubal potentially, radically transform anyone's rotation. As he's been one of the best free agent pitchers this year. He's on a 1-year deal. This is the other thing that I got to give Scott Harris credit for. He takes a lot of shit in Detroit, and I've kind of been a defender of his for maybe too long. But uh, he signed a really shrewd deal with Jack Flaherty. He's a 1-year free agent. I forget how much money, whatever. There are no bad 1-year deals, but the key to that, and I kept hearing people talk about, well, just sign him to a qualifying offer and see what happens from there, and you can either keep him or get a draft pick out of him. And it's like, well, no, he's been a free agent, so He's already had his qualifying offer.
Right.
Then I realized it's not true. I totally missed this. He was traded last year from the Cardinals to the Orioles, and he was so awful with the Orioles, they didn't offer him a qualifying offer. So he has yet to receive his one qualifying offer yet.
Hmm.
So Scott Harris has that in his back pocket. He can negotiate from another position of strength, even with Jack Flaherty. He doesn't have to lose him. If he does, if we do keep him for this season, like we said, if things change slightly in the AL Central, the Tigers are positioned. If they can get just a little bit of fucking offense, they've got an incredible rotation. Flaherty they can give him a qualifying offer, and if he wants to stay, which there's a big potential they'd want to stay, considering how much better he's been as a Tiger than he has been in the last several years under the tutelage of Chris Federer, pitching coach. Uh, he might stick around, and for whatever the qualifying offer is, that would be a pretty good deal for the Tigers. So Scott Harris is in a position of strength in both of these sides. So again, the problem with the Tigers is the offense, and it showed some signs of life this last 10 days before the break. Colt Keith, the chic pick for Rookie of the Year, really struggled at the beginning of the season, but he's figured it out. He's got a 1,200 OPS over the last 2 weeks, so figuring it out. I'm not saying he's got it all figured out, but he certainly showed way more signs of positivity on the offensive side. So there's reasons to be positive. There's reasons to be certainly interested in the trade deadline. Again, I don't want to trade Tarik Skubal, but fucking A. If you could load up your whole infield for the next 5-10 years in one trade and change the course of the Tigers franchise. So certainly would have to take any offers seriously.
Do you want me to give you the good news now?
Yeah, I might as well talk about the good news.
All right. You know who has the second hardest schedule in the second half? The Cleveland Guardians. All
Oh
of
yes,
baseball.
nice.
The Kansas City Royals have the 13th most difficult schedule in all of baseball
Okay,
in the second half.
average.
The Detroit Tigers are all the way down
Heard
at
this.
22.
Yeah,
The teams they're playing in the second half have a combined record of 492.
they're playing the White Sox a lot.
7 games.
Yeah,
The
10% of the season
Rockies for
left.
3, A's for 3, Angels for
Oh
3,
boy.
Blue Jays for 3, and the Cubs for 3.
You got to win those games, of course, but
Yes.
yeah, that's looking quite optimistic. Uh, that the real thing that I didn't know that you just brought up is Cleveland having the second hardest schedule.
Oh yeah,
That's
they got Phillies for 3, Orioles for 4, Yankees for 3, Dodgers for 3, Brew Crew for 3, Twins for 8.
Tigers just
Uh,
won their series with them last week, and it was a fun, tight series, but they didn't look better than the Tigers. I mean, the
no.
Tigers won more games. And even in an earlier series this year, that was every game was by one run. It seemed like I didn't think the Guardians looked that much better than the Tigers. They just got everything to work, and their bullpen was just a little bit better. So those things could even out. So they got a long ways to go, but that's interesting. That is some good news. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I want to get your face in the right direction here.
Well, unfortunately, fortunately or maybe unfortunately for you, I've got 2 more segments devoted to the Tigers here. So we've only just begun because we have to start with aesthetics. You may or may not have noticed I'm wearing a brand new t-shirt tonight. It is my Motor City Nike City Connect t-shirt.
I did notice that. Yes.
All right. It's basically it's all going downhill from here because this is the only piece of merchandise I bought. Um, when it comes to the Detroit's Motor City City Connect uniforms, I kind of feel like the worst thing your dad could ever say to you when you fucked up. I'm not mad. I'm disappointed. And it's just a crushing thing to hear. Like, oh, I'm not mad about the Tigers uniform. City Connect uniforms. I'm just really disappointed. They had such an opportunity, and I thought I was going to load up on merchandise similar to how you did when your Southsiders came up with the best City Connect uniforms. I think we can say that now that they've all been released. Uh, there's been two things specifically that I've talked about as we've broken down every single one of these goddamn uniforms. Fortunately, a third of the league was released when we took this 3-month hiatus as Major League Baseball and Nike vomited out
Yeah.
different
It was,
uniforms for
it was like
it was like
bam,
every
bam,
other
bam,
day.
bam. Yeah.
Yeah, it was, and they're all so mediocre. So mercifully, we did not do segments on each of those as they came out, as we were not podcasting at the time. And I'm not going back to do that, but I did have to talk about Detroit's at least because I've been looking forward to this for 2 fucking years. Uh, there's been two major things that I have been annoyed with most of the Nike City Connect uniforms, and that is dark pants
Hmm.
and gradients.
You got them
And of
both.
course, and the Tigers have dark pants and a gradient, uh, which is fine. Whatever. It's just I couldn't believe it. Like things I have brought up every time that they fell right into. The problem with the Tiger, or one of the many problems with the Tigers, is the gradient on the jersey is basically two electric blue tire tracks going up the chest, down the back. It fades off into a gradient on the sides. It gives the impression that they've been run over by some vehicle, just kind of just destroyed as they've been run over by whatever electric or General Motors vehicle they're trying to talk about. I thought that was funny. The Motor City word mark across the chest, it is cool. And that's why I'm wearing the T-shirt. That's the one piece of merch I did buy. Uh, the weird part of the explanation, which I did not send you all the explanation. I should have done that so you could go through and read everything, but we'll try and keep this short. They said it was an homage to auto racing, which I've been a car racing fan since I was 2 years old, kind of
Yeah.
hardcore into it because my grandpa and my father were big auto racing fans. And I'm a graphic designer by trade, and I can tell you this font has nothing to do with auto racing. I've never seen it anywhere. It doesn't remind me of car racing in any way. I guess it's got a slant to it, an italicized look to it, which might could interpret it as speed or something, but that made no sense. So I thought it was cool regardless. It's more of like a not a hood ornament, but car ornamentations, like the name of the car on the side. I think that's more what it looks like. But so the word mark is cool. The problem is they didn't just stick with the Motor City word mark. They also included a second word mark saying Detroit across the front of the hat, which I can't
Yes.
stand hats that have word marks. I love baseball caps that have logos. Of course, the Old English D is the best. Well, probably the Yankees is the best. But in my mind, I've been wearing an Old English D on my head for probably 25 years on most days. You've got the classic Sox logo on your hat right there. It
That's
is,
right.
as much as I hate the White Sox, that is a fantastic logo. It's a fantastic hat because it's got a classic logo on it. The Tigers chose to just write Detroit across the front, which even if it said Motor City would make a little more sense because they already had the Motor City word mark. So why would you create a second word mark? But to put a word mark on the hat is so disappointing. They had an opportunity to either make an adjustment, maybe a color change to the Old English D, or maybe do an interlocking MC for Motor City, maybe even in this font that they're using. Something that would have been different and interesting. And they fucked it up. They also included a large patch in the side that's an homage to a vehicle identification number, a VIN number, uh, which would make more sense as a jock tag, I think, on the jersey. It's the VIN number they use is 1901, the year of their inception, then 35, 45, 84, or 68 and 84, the years they won World Series. So that's kind of cool, but it looks stupid on the side of the hat. So I didn't even buy a hat. I didn't even get a fucking hat out of this after obsessing over this for forever. So I again, it's you and I have talked about this time and again. We're middle-aged white dudes. These aren't really made for us. These are made for kids. They're just made to sell merch, to get
I
people
mean,
excited. And I think the Tigers in Detroit in general has received it pretty well. I predicted they would, of course, it was obvious they're going to make an homage to the Motor City, but
yeah.
the way they did it was just disappointing and frustrating.
Yeah, we talked about how they could have incorporated the Red Wings logo somehow, and we had a bunch of cool ideas that we thought they might
The
actually
winged
do.
wheel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it didn't ever happen. And you know, I just look at the Tigers jersey, and it kind of reminds me of like the and a lot of these City Connect jerseys, they remind me of like the jerseys I see when I watch Charlie play baseball.
Yeah.
Like it's the jerseys little league teams make. Like
Yeah. Well,
they
and
really are. And I know they're
that
like you said, they're marketing to the youth.
that's
They're trying
yeah,
to
is it design? That's by design. I mean, if that's
yeah,
what the kids
but
like, that's what they're going to sell more of, I guess. So,
I'm just like it's such a huge opportunity just wasted for Detroit because there's so many Motown. There's just so many iconic things like that, you know, didn't happen. So
well, they wasted all that time, and all I got with this was this T-shirt.
I think we know I've rating it. I'm giving it 2 middle fingers down, but
Yeah, I think I got to go 2 middle fingers down too. Okay, finally, my last Tiger segment for the
Jesus.
night. I've gone on for almost an hour now,
That don't worry, guys. The speed of the podcast is gonna pick up after this.
but well, you'll enjoy this because this is going to be our flagship asshole of the week.
Bum bum bum.
But this dates all the way back to May 1st when the
Wow.
Tigers,
Okay.
amongst half of the major
Oh
leagues,
yeah.
were
Yes. Yes.
ripped off of television on every
God.
Comcast subscriber's television.
Yes.
13.6 million subscribers across the country are unable to watch their hometown baseball team without making other complicated arrangements, as Comcast could not come to an agreement with Bally Sports Group, or I'm sorry, the parent company Diamond Sports Group. Basically, what Comcast is trying to do is move all the regional sports networks to a premier tier. They're going to move it up from basic cable. People are going to have to pay extra to get their local regional sports networks, which is it is a business maneuver. It is leveraging Diamond Sports Group's bankruptcy proceedings that look like they are not going so well. Uh, Basically, the whole regional sports network model is collapsing, and
Yeah.
Comcast has taken advantage of that. The other entity that is trying to take advantage of that is Major League Baseball, who on May 1st, as this snuck up on everybody, essentially half the major league teams lost their viewership on Comcast at the same time. There was no comment from Major League Baseball on that day or subsequent. There's been comments since, but I wrote down on May 1st as this blindsided the entire industry. Christ, you and I talk about regional sports networks more than most, and we know TV deals. I had no idea this was happening. Detroit Sports Talk Radio was not talking about it. It was the morning of that we found out at noon that day Bally Sports was going away, and we're gonna have to scramble to figure out how to actually watch Tigers games. That also affects National Hockey League teams and NBA teams across the country. And this is not just isolated Detroit or wherever, but those leagues aren't in season, so they're affected in a very different way. Where this happened right in the middle of the major league season, and Rob Manfred had no comment. No, this is could have said something like, "This is unfortunate. We feel for our fans. This is not the outcome we want." He said nothing, and this is leading my argument that there's not one, not two, but three assholes of the week or assholes of the first 2/3 of the season
Yeah.
letting this happen. Diamond Sports Group invested in a bad business and a dying business before they realized it was dying. Regional sports networks are going away. Comcast are assholes for leveraging that and taking it away without telling anyone this is happening. Major League Baseball is and Rob Manfred are probably the worst in this because this is their livelihood. I mean, they can't even speak to their own fans to know that they are to at least empathize in the most nominal ways. Just issue a fucking statement saying we feel for you. We did not want this outcome. The issue is Rob Manfred and baseball cannot say anything about it, or they couldn't say it at the time because they want this to happen. They want they want the regional sports model to collapse. They want this all to go away so they can just buy back all the rights. We talked about this a little bit last year when this actually happened for both Arizona and San Diego. Their local deals fell apart and Major League Baseball stepped in, hired the whole staffs. And now those games are broadcast locally by Major League Baseball and are available in the At Bat app. Since they own it, they don't have to black it out. And this is the whole plan. Baseball wants this to collapse so they can buy back every team's rights and then sell you every team without blackouts, including your hometown team. Which on the surface sounds like something you and I have been railing for, and fans across the country have been asking for all along. Let us have a streaming product where we can see every single fucking game. Stop the blackouts. Let me see my hometown team and everything else, which that is coming. That is everyone's goal, and this is part of the process. But the way it's happened is disgusting. The way it's happened in the middle of the season and just put fans, you know, trying to figure out how the fuck we're going to watch our favorite teams every day. It just makes it's just such an ugly look. There, of course, MLB At Bat is $150 this year. I think that's what it was.
That's what I think. It's usually been between like 129 and 149 is usually what's
well. I can guarantee once they offer you your hometown team and every single game not being blacked out, that's going to double. If it's not going to be just straight up to 200, it's going to be $250 or $300 because they can. And there's no other way to watch the Tigers essentially.
Yeah, they're going to go the route of the NFL ticket.
Yeah, it's a little different because there's so many strong national. But yeah, and NFL ticket just got sued for like how many billions of dollars. They just lost a lawsuit for that. So that's a really interesting strategy right there that Major League Baseball is trying to go down, a path they're trying to go down. But so it's just horribly frustrating. There are workarounds. Maybe you remember I called you up asking what you knew about VPNs a couple months ago.
VPNs
I was going to try
Reddit.
I was going to try and circumvent the system by getting a VPN so that Major League Baseball would not know where I was coming from, so they couldn't black me out. That didn't work. Somehow, if you have a VPN, it just wouldn't let you log into the At Bat app at all. They've wizened to that somehow, which seems illegal because you should be able to have a VPN to do whatever.
Right.
I don't know. Didn't work. The next thing I tried was Bally's does have an app of their own, a streaming app. It is mediocre at best, I would say. Fortunately, they offered a 7-day free trial. So I signed up for that, was able to watch the Tigers for those 7 days. Fubo is the other streaming service provider that also carries Bally Sports, so you can get games on that. And they have a 7-day free trial. So that lasted me about 2 weeks. Then I had to finally cave and buy the fucking Bally Sports app. And $20 a month. So I'm already spending 150, I think, 120 something for the At Bat app to see everything else. Now I'm spending $20 on top of my cable bill to watch Tigers games. And really, basically, I called Comcast. Actually, they offered like an $8 discount since we're losing Bally's. Then they didn't even apply it to the first bill. So I called them up again, like, where the fuck is my discount? And then I actually stayed on the phone long enough where they cut my ridiculous $300 cable bill in half. So, so that's one way to fight it, I guess. They also offered a free subscription for 3 months to Fubo, which I have not redeemed yet. So I might be checking that out soon. So Comcast is trying to help out, I guess, but the way the way it was handled was horrific in the first couple of weeks. So yeah, Comcast, Rob Manfred, and Bally's can all suck my dick. You are fucking assholes.
Dang. You done talking now for a little bit?
Yeah, I gotta stop talking. I gotta drink some beer here, but
Have some beer. Let me move over to the West Coast, and
the field is yours. Go anywhere you
so
want.
I'm going to go to the West Coast because we're, there we have the same records. Um, the Giants, 47-50.
Yeah.
Uh, I used the line at one point just a few days before the All-Star break. The Cubs, Giants, and Tigers all had the same identical record.
Yeah.
And I said a famous Rick Hahn quote: "We are mirrored in mediocrity,"
Yeah.
and the Giants remain there. I think one of the last quotes I had when we were last on was, when we get back on this podcast, the Giants will be over 500. Well, we haven't been in here in 3 months and they're still not over 500 at 47-50, but
Right there, though.
right there, 3 games out of the wild card spot. And, that question's up
Who
here
isn't
now.
3 games out of the wild card spot, though? That's the thing. It's like the whole league is 3 games out of the wild card spot.
After the Cubs, there's a significant fall off.
There's like 2 teams. I think that's
The
it.
Nationals are 6, and then the Rockies are 16 games out. So,
Right, but
yeah,
that's the whole fucking league then.
yeah. So, but when I look at it from an idea of like buying or selling, their strength of schedule is 29 out of 30 in the second half.
Wow. All
And
right.
to me, that's an opportunity.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they know this. I think the winning percentage of the teams they have left playing is like 468. I mean, it's not even like near 500,
So
you
they must have
know?
played most of their division
Yeah.
games already.
Their division, I think they had the Orioles already and stuff like
Wow.
that,
Okay.
Yankees. So, I mean, they got through with the White Sox too. The White Sox are going to be helping out every other team on this podcast. But
Yeah, hopefully.
um, so we've had a lot of guys underperforming. You see, Blake Snell is starting to surge. An ERA that once was in the teens is now down to like 5 something ERA. So he was
He was he was
yeah,
hurt for a while, wasn't
he
he?
was slightly he was on the IL for a little bit while we were off. He came back, had a no-hitter through 7.
Oh wow.
So there's lots of things pointing up for the Giants. They're 500 right now for the month of July. What a surprise. So I feel like, you know, you might as well go for it. You've got a decent enough farm system that and you've got some depth there in the lower levels that people aren't talking about yet, but that's decent talent. So I feel like, they made a couple of, like one offensive move and they really need bullpen help. If they did some moves there, maybe one starting pitcher, like everyone needs, they'd be in like really good shape to get a wild card playoff spot. Um, I mean, I just laugh at the Nostradamus predictions. I was so all in on everything the Giants are going to do. I was like a maniac. I was screaming, and it's just been such a letdown. Solaire's severely underperformed.
Oh, I haven't even
Um,
heard his name this year, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean it's been horrible. Conforto's been actually really fucking solid, which is which has been great to see. And Yastrzemski's coming around now, but I mean, I I feel like God, there's this opportunity for some of these guys to start getting back towards their numbers, and if they do, the Giants' offense is just going to be like a fucking force to reckon with. And especially, they may look a little inflated in the second half, or not really second half, this remaining season of baseball because their schedule is so weak. So they're going to be going up against a lot of shitty pitching, and
Yeah.
they're probably going to be able to feast on it. So, one of the disturbing trends I was looking at, like their month by month record and results. I mean, April really killed them. They only scored 91 runs in the
Oh
month
my
of
God.
April. Yeah.
What the
90.
fuck?
The offense produced 91 total runs. I mean,
This is
now
the
they're,
story of all of our teams, it seems like. Just the
yeah.
anemic offense. It's just brutal.
And now they're like, now they're into the 130 range. The last 2 months, May and June, they were like
Okay.
133 and 135. So things have gotten back to at least a norm, but they've had shaky starting pitching, which was not really thought to that is going to be like a major issue this year. But that seems to be starting to come around. And again, some of it could be with this lower level of talent they're starting to play now. And then,
We've got the
um,
cavalry coming too with
yeah, we
what's
got
his fuck.
Robbie Ray coming. So
Have you heard much about that? I haven't been paying attention, but have they been talking about his
yeah,
return?
they're thinking like maybe like a week and a half, 2 weeks he'll be
Okay.
back. So that in itself is there's your starting pitching. So you don't have to even trade for starting pitching really. And
Well, that's the thing. You've been pointing to that since before the season,
yeah,
like how that return could change everything. And if your starting pitching is already trending back to better, that could be a huge jump. So that's your trade deadline move, is just getting Robbie Ray back.
yeah. I think we do need to try to do something offensively though too. So we'll see what happens there. But um, yeah, I mean it's just been really disappointing. I've watched a decent amount of games, mainly because one reason is the White Sox are so fucking awful that you know watching them is really not an option. At least watching an entire game is not an option. And I'll get to a funny story about that. But um,
Hmm.
the I think the Giants they're in the driver's seat. They're not in the driver's seat, but they're in a good position to make the playoffs this year. So,
Wow.
but again, you're right. There's 8 teams essentially vying. You're like you said, half the league, half the NL is vying for the 3 wild card spots. So,
Yeah.
but some of those
I
teams have a much harder schedule ahead of them. So we'll
yeah,
see how
I
things
like
start to even out.
your thesis is solid with based on the easiest, potentially easiest schedule going forward,
Yeah.
and the starting rotation depth being bolstered by Robbie Ray and starting to turn the corner. That could lead to a much different second half for you guys. I don't think you're delusional. I think you backed that up with some good stats, good science right there.
Yeah,
Good for you.
I'll say one thing for the Giants, and I'm going to use this to help you segue into the Cubs. One of the reasons I thought
Oh,
the Giants were going to be better this year was because they hired Bob Melvin. Them
yeah.
the managerial difference that would put them in a different position, but
My
instead
God.
that has not happened, and
My God.
I feel like you might have some similar thoughts as
Yeah.
we transition over to the north side of Chicago.
Yeah, we have dramatically overstated the value of a manager. Apparently, as much as you and
we
I talked about Craig Counsell and Bob Melvin coming into this season, what the fuck? I mean, would the Cubs be better off with David Ross?
Yes,
That
I
is a
honestly
legitimate
believe.
that is a legitimate conversation that's being had everywhere. I don't really need to get into that at this point,
No.
but that's a fun conversation. I think we'll have in the off season. But I also want to hear what David Ross is doing. I wonder what he's how pissed off he is, or how much fun he's having watching this season from his palatial estate in Florida or wherever he's at. I'd love to hear an interview with him at some point. So actually, you and I should get on that. Try and find his cell phone, call him up. But
We should.
I mean, we were talking about, or at least I was talking about, it could be a 5 game bump for Craig Counsell um, taking over the team, but that has certainly not come to fruition. The Cubs are essentially the Tigers at twice the price. They have
That's true.
they have a half game worse record at this point, but they've got the same characteristics. great starting pitching with Shota Imanaga and Justin Steele. Actually, even Jameson Tyone has rebounded from a shitty first
Yeah,
season.
he sure has.
Kyle Hendricks was bad for a while and has come back and has been tremendous. They demoted him to the bullpen at one point, and he came back and has been great as a starter down these last couple weeks. So the starting pitching is certainly not the issue. Same as it is with the Tigers. They don't have a closer. They have blown 18 saves. 18 saves. If they had even converted half of those, they'd have a winning record at least, which would put them right around where I predicted they would be. I think they were just above a 500 team before the season started. I didn't think they were going to be a 90 plus win team. I thought they'd be middle of the 80s, and that would put them in contention for the NL Central crown. The problem is, similar to the AL Central, two teams have been way better than I am possibly anticipated. The Brewers are, it's almost like they jettisoned the weight of Craig Counsell and are much better now
Exactly.
without him.
Exactly. You guys got screwed on that.
They also jettisoned the weight of the top 2/3 of their rotation, which makes no sense. So I think, again, I think they're a house of cards as well. I don't. I need to probably do more research into that, figure out how the fuck they were doing this. But the bigger house of cards is the cards themselves, St. Louis Cardinals. How
They're
they
so
are.
annoying. They're so annoying. Like,
You look at their
again,
rotation. It is. I mean, ancient. They should not be
Lance
in this
fucking
race at
Lynn
all.
looks like Lance fucking Lynn
Exactly.
again. Well, how did
Yeah.
that happen?
Fucking Cardinal voodoo magic is just so nauseating. I'm so sick of it. It was so nice to see it kind of evaporate over the last 5+ years, but to have it coming back now is just disgusting. So it's so similar. The stories, the way I feel about the Tigers and watching this season play out is so similar to how the Cubs season is playing out as well, just on a totally different scale. As the Cubs spent $228 million on this payroll, where the Tigers spent 107, which I think 107 is probably the value you get for, or the being just below 500 is pretty good value for spending 107 million versus 228 pushing up against the bullshit de facto salary cap.
Yeah.
Shota Imanaga he's far exceeded my expectations. I was a little bit dubious hearing about him. I thought it'd be a huge adjustment coming to a new culture, new league. He was fantastic out of the box. He had a couple blips, maybe a month or so ago, but he recovered from that and is showing his dominance again. I was worried about the fly ball rate. That has not come to crush him yet. That might still come to fruition here as the hot months are here at Wrigley Field as we end July going into August. That I'm still a little bit nervous about that. But Justin Steele came back from his game one hamstring injury and has been the best pitcher in the National League since that. When he came back over these last 9 starts, his stats are better than anyone's. So he is back. Like we were talking about Kyle Hendricks. He's looked really good the last couple starts. I was sure his career was over. If we were doing podcasts the last 3 months, I'm sure I would have done a segment where I would have called it a career for Kyle Hendricks. I would have thanked him for his time, the huge moments he had in Cubs history. But I thought it was over, and he has come back, and I'm kind of astounded. So yeah, those are some positives, but the offense has just been so frustrating. And Dansby Swanson is kind of at the center of that. The
Yep.
underperformance from him. Cody Bellinger was okay, but now he's hurt. Michael Busch, my National League Rookie of the Year prediction, is actually looking pretty good. He will not win National League Rookie of the Year due to the emergence of Paul Skeens, of course, from the
Holy
Pittsburgh
shit.
Pirates.
Yeah.
He might win the Cy Young Rookie of the Year and MVP. That dude is fucking ridiculous. Started the All-Star games for the
Nasty.
National League. So my prediction of Michael Busch winning the National League Rookie of the Year is not going to happen. But hey, he might be the Cubs' best hitter right now. Over these first 3.5 months. One thing I got to bring up before I move on from the Cubs is Pete Crow-Armstrong. And you probably haven't watched a whole lot of Cubs baseball, but I could see how a
No.
Sox fan would not be a fan of Pete Crow-Armstrong. And I'm not sure I am one either. He strikes me as an entitled rich kid that is just skating by on his talent. He is extremely talented, but he is a really frustrating and annoying player to watch, I think, as a Cubs fan. People love him. People give him all sorts of rope, let him get away with all sorts of shit, but I find him frustrating and annoying. He has got like a 582 OPS at this point. The main thing that really set me off, besides two different, I think it's now 3 or 4 different occasions in spring training, he dropped obvious catches. He actually had a terrible drop that cost the Cubs a game in New York earlier this year against the Mets, where he sort of kind of tried to make a tough play. He tried to make it look cool by not putting out as much effort as he thought as you might
Yeah.
think he would, and he kind of short armed it and dropped the ball, and they lost the game. It's just like little things like that. But the one incident that really stood out to me is his first major league hit. This is from my notes from 3 months ago, but I had to keep it and bring it up because it's so fucking annoying. His first major league hit happened to be a home run, which is cool. That's very cool. But you would have thought he just won the goddamn World Series. There were gesticulations, hand gestures, dancing, pointing, all sorts of things from home to first, from first to second, from second to third, and from third to home. He had one of the most obnoxious home run trots I've ever seen for a dude getting his first fucking hit in the major leagues, being a massive disappointment offensively thus far. I thought the way he was gesticulating, I thought he could have got to home plate, dropped his pants, and started jerking off in front of the entire crowd. It was so ridiculous. And he has not shown much humility or anything. I just think of him as a spoiled rich kid that feels very entitled. Uh, I want to see production out of him. He does have 17 steals, which is a benefit. He swings for the goddamn fences every time, and he gets
Yeah.
crushed by velocity. He cannot handle a high fastball. He if he could just make contact, he is so goddamn fast. He could get on first base. If he gets on first base, he's going to be on third base. He's almost like Ricky Henderson in that regard. He can steal. That he just can't get on base because he's trying to hit fucking home runs so he can jerk off at home plate after his ridiculous home
Chris
run
Morel
trot.
his roommate?
Yeah, there's a lot of swing and miss, and no two strike approach appears to be taught within the Cubs organization. But Chris Morel is a whole different story. I wanted to focus on PCA tonight.
Well, no, I just wonder if
just,
they were roommates because Chris Morel and his 200 batting average every time he hits a home run celebrates too. Like it's
yeah, you're right.
fucking. I just thought maybe they're like maybe he's his mentor. That's all I was trying to point out, making a joke.
Yeah,
Just,
yeah. No, I get it. I'm with you. I just
yeah.
thought particularly that this was Pete Crow-Armstrong's first hit.
Hey,
That's how he reacts.
you start out big, baby. Go big or go
Oh
home,
my
Smitty. Come on.
It is just ridiculous. So Pete Crow-Armstrong needs to work on getting on base, and then we can start working on celebrating. He doesn't strike me as a winning player. He strikes me as a me first player,
Ugh.
and
Yeah, that's
that
the
does not
worst.
work.
Yeah, we've
He's
had
young.
more than a few of those.
He's young. He can figure it out. I have heard of a few comments that I've found intriguing and raised an eyebrow, like when he got called up after I forget who got hurt, but Craig Counsell made it a point to say he's only up here because of injuries. He was like
yeah,
trying
yeah.
to see. That's something that kind of raised an eyebrow, thinking, oh, okay, maybe internally even they see this, like they're trying to put him trying to bring him down a little bit. You need to know your place. You need to be a team first player, not all about yourself. So I've heard some player comments that were along those lines earlier. I haven't heard those in a couple months necessarily, but when he was first called up, you could tell that the veteran players were kind of annoyed with him as well. So again, even if he wants to be an ass, act like an ass in the field, it's great. Whatever, it's annoying. I can complain about it. Just produce, get an OPS above at least 600 before you act like you are the end all be all. Cubs need to win some fucking games here, and the way they could do that very quickly is he's a game changer if he gets on base, and he just doesn't do it nearly enough. So figure it out, dude. That's all I've got, mercifully, for a much shorter Cubs segment than I had for the Tigers. So I will let you go from here.
Well, I guess might as well hop on the red line and head on down to 35th and Shields to talk about
Southside, stand up.
That's right. Stand up for baseball history in the
Do you stand up?
In the worst way possible.
Have you stood up after all 27 of your victories, as John Triffin has commanded you to do all of the South?
Or home runs too. Sometimes you got to stand up for
Does
home
he do
runs.
that for home runs?
Sometimes,
wow,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I do, there's a lot of haters on this guy, but I enjoy him. I think he's
wow. I thought, okay, that's cool. I thought you were going to crush him too, but
no, I find him to be in a season that shit. Somehow this guy has been managed to come on the air and just been, a sunny personality. I will say, he's
he
a
sounds
guy.
like a total phony to me, but
Yeah, well, I will say this: he's a little too much on the Homer Hawk end of things. I think is where that whole problem comes in. It's like he's always trying to sell what the White Sox are doing, and it's like, dude, there's nothing to sell here. They're shit. Their manager is shit, and no matter how you try to spin it, it's not going to happen.
He's in a terrible spot taking over as the voice of the White Sox at this point, and he's not from Chicago. He's learning. I feel like he's learning the culture. He doesn't know White Sox culture. He's bought into the cliches of White Sox culture, I think, with Hawk Harrelson specifically, but following on the heels of Jason Benetti, those are shoes that are going to be very difficult for anyone to fill. So I love piling on Triffin. I find him very phony. I think he's going to get better over time, but the fact that you already like him is cool. That there's something to build on there. I think he can only get better, but this is a tough way for him to start.
Yeah, I mean, there's the hatred for him.
There's a lot.
I know he's in a war, I think, with Spiegel and Parkins, which is what it is, because I think they're both two tools. So
oh, I love those guys.
So like that's fine, but like I'm not here to defend Triffin, but to like just nitpick him from they have nitpicked him from day one, like every little screw up he's ever done, and like you said,
he did call Bill Veek in a live read, and it's
he read it like it's spelled.
I'm not even from Chicago. I'm not a White Sox fan, but I know it's Bill Veck as in wreck, because he fucking wrote a book called Veck as in wreck.
Well,
so it's kind of something you should know, but
didn't do his research.
Right. Well, that's unfortunate.
But
sorry, I've already derailed your White Sox segment.
So, well, I mean, I'm just going to talk about all the awesome history the White Sox are making. They finished out the first half for the first team ever to have 71 losses in the first half of Major League Baseball in Major League Baseball history. That's right.
There's a bit of a caveat to that, though, isn't this the most games played before the All-Star break ever, too?
Oh, I don't know about that. Maybe, but
well, because we started in March, and this is the latest All-Star break ever, too. So I think that's probably the case. They've just played more games, but still, that's kind of a
well. I think it's
caveat.
Also the worst winning percentage in the first half, maybe. So
I wouldn't be surprised. Ouch, that's tough.
So, or close to worst. Actually, I think the A's in. Maybe it was like 03 or something had the worst winning percentage, but then the White Sox.
What about the 62 Mets are what everyone's chasing, but did they have a better
No,
first half than?
no.
Huh.
Yeah, they did have a better first half. They weren't on the
Okay.
list I was looking at. But like, how bad is this record? How bad is this record for White Sox history? I don't know if everyone can see this glove I'm wearing, but the White Sox were using gloves like this in
The tiny mitts.
1932, which was the season they won 49 games.
Oh,
The Sox are on pace right now to beat that with 45 wins.
oh
45
boy.
fucking wins. And
Yikes.
that would put them as the worst record in baseball history.
No, that's not true. You've got the 62 Mets were 42 and 120. The 2003 Tigers were, I believe, 43 and 119. They came dangerously close to having the worst record. So
Won't it
you
be the
got
worst?
if
Maybe
you
it's the
win
worst
40,
percentage.
well, it's going to be 100, 162 either way. But you got to get over 43 wins to be the worst, to not be the worst or tied for the worst in the American League. You got to get over 42 wins to not be tied for the worst in Major League history.
Oh, all right. Well,
I'm so unfortunately familiar with this just because of the Tigers being involved with that in 2003. So you're pacing a little better. The problem is if you trade the players you're talking about potentially trading at the deadline, I don't know how many games you're going to win in the second half. You need to win 15 to get to 42. So
well, that's a perfect setup, Smitty,
I
because
was trying to help you out there.
we'll start off with something I think could very well happen, and that is Lewis Robert getting traded.
Boy.
And I see that happening because Scott Boras is his agent, and the White Sox are not going to, even though they're controlling him for the next 3 seasons, are not going to, when they might be in a window again, probably pay the money to keep him on the team. So I feel like he's going to be one of the key chips to fall at the trade deadline. What they get for him though is a mystery. It's a mystery because apparently the Sox are asking the world, but
As
you
they
know,
should.
they should. But I mean, he was injured again. He
He's
is
not having
coming
a
off.
great
He's coming off an
great
MVP
season.
season. But now he's like his numbers are getting up there for the amount of games he's played. But it's not that, to your point, it's not that great of a season. So
Yeah.
are you trading someone as a little bit of a what if? You know, I mean, you would think not. You think he's got the tools. We've all seen him on display when he's out on the field. He's a Gold Glover. He can steal bases, but can he stay on the field and have continue like the and build upon the season he had last year for the White Sox? You
Well,
just
that's the
don't
thing.
know.
If they're going to trade him, they needed to trade him this past offseason. That was the peak of his value. I mean,
Yeah,
I guess that's hindsight now, but again, you don't have to trade him right now. So I don't know why Chris Getz would be interested in trading him at the deadline right now, just for all the reasons you pointed out. His
exactly.
value is not to the point, not to its highest point in any reason by any means, and you don't have to do anything. You've got
Exactly.
him under control for how many more years?
I think it's next year and then two more options. So
Yeah, so I'd be shocked if he was traded. I think it'd be a big mistake just because he's not at the peak of his value right now. And what I mean, what how devastating would that be to have him traded at this point with that much control? I mean, I guess the return would have to be enormous the way I'm viewing trades of Tarik Skubal with my Tigers.
yeah,
To get over that, the returns, they're in Turk Skubal, right? His value right now is as high as it could possibly be. Where Luis Robert, it's not there right now, just because of the health and the lack of production right at the moment, at least. That if he has a strong second half, then I think this offseason could be a perfect time to trade him. I just think right now it makes no sense.
yeah. I mean, I agree. I think with him getting injured and coming back and getting back into the swing of things, um, it doesn't make it's more of an off-season trade or maybe deadline next year trade or something if that's the case. But maybe they will get this unbelievable haul they're looking for. But I just I agree, it just doesn't make any sense. Now, the flip side of this, while it makes sense, at the same time it doesn't make sense to me. Is this all the rumors surrounding Garrett Crochet and any pitcher who's having um, an incredible year is especially incredible first half is going to be on the trade rumor list because everyone always needs pitching. And we were talking about the haul for Skubal. When you look at their numbers, it's kind of crazy. Uh, just real quick, Skubal's got about 10 more innings pitched than Crochet, but 10 less strikeouts than Crochet. Um, Tarik's numbers are better from a whip at 80.88 to Crochet's 0.95.
Yeah, I
Batting,
mean,
yeah, it's nominal. Both of them have only let up.
awesome or
Yeah, it's hilarious. They both let up 10 home runs.
hmm.
30 Crochet's got 36 earned runs to Skubal's 31. I mean, they're right there. 81 hits to 79 hits for Crochet, but he's also pitched 10 less innings, so that would do it. But anyway, so if
There's a
the
big difference though.
the biggest difference is now Crochet is under control for an insane endless amount of time, but is
Oh,
also
I thought
coming.
it was the same. I thought it
No,
was this year plus 2 more years.
no, I don't think so. Because he doesn't have that much major league service time.
He's got 4 years already. So I think he's done. I think he's been around for a lot longer than you imagine. The biggest difference, why don't you look that up to confirm, but
I am.
the biggest difference in my mind is they're already shutting down the number of innings that he's going to be pitching this season. He's not a viable starter going forward, as you and I both talked about. But prior to the season, he's going to be on an innings limit, and they just started that last
Well,
week.
that's the White Sox decide that. I mean, doesn't mean someone else has
He's
to.
never pitched more than 78 innings in his entire career. So any team trading for him can't assume he's going to be effective in the second half of the season.
I don't
He's just
disagree.
never
I'm
done
not
it.
disagreeing with you, but I'm just saying that.
That's the only, and this is what I'm saying. That's the huge caveat with Crochet versus Skubal is he's never done it. He's never come close to doing it. And he's never been a starter before. So he's such a wild card. What he does have is control over the next at least 2 years. I don't know if you found that yet, but
It's
um
loading.
uh I just don't think he's going to you can't guarantee, well, you can't guarantee anything, but you can't count on him to be a contributor to this postseason where someone trading for him right now at the trading for pitchers right now at the trade deadline are trying to bolster their efforts for the World Series where he's already gone he's already pitched as many innings this year as he's ever pitched in his entire career. So I think there's just no way you could count on him down this stretch. You could be uh playing the long game and knowing you've got this guy, you're going to protect him this year and then use him the next couple years under control as potentially the best starting pitcher in the majors. But you can't count on him this year. That's the huge difference between Skubal and Crochet at least in my mind.
Yeah, you're right.
I
It is
didn't.
only 2 more years. What the fuck?
Yeah, because I thought it was the identical situation. Like their numbers are the same and their contract situation is the same. The only difference is the numbers of career innings pitched, and especially innings pitched this year.
Well, I just thought because he missed that entire. What did
It
Skubal
doesn't
miss an
matter. It's
entire season
he missed
to injury?
he missed parts of 2 seasons. So it doesn't matter. Your service clock starts when it starts. So it Crochet started in 2020, I think. So that's why, and you get 6 years of control, and then I forget how it all works. I just know it's this year and 2 more years after.
Oh,
So
yeah, so that's my bad. But yeah, I think you're right. I think like he's a risk for any
it's
team.
it's not it's not I'm just saying it's not a huge detriment. It's just a big difference between he and Skubal, I guess, in the trade market. At least who's trading for him right now. Like when I brought up the Orioles trading for Skubal, they would be trading for him for potentially 3 shots at the World Series because he would be a contributor. They could realistically view him as a contributor to their rotation this year and 2 more years. I just don't think that's the case with anybody trading for Crochet right now. Now in the off season, again, I think that's when if the Godfather offer comes in, which I think it certainly could for Crochet in this off season, I think that's when Getz could make that move. But that that I just again I don't think either of the either Robert or Crochet makes sense for Getz to move at this point for different reasons, I guess. But I think you're waiting for them to be at their peak or their value, and I think that's this off season potentially.
Yeah, it's just, it's crazy because like I look at him and if they get the Godfather offer, as we're calling it, like there's no reason for them not to do it because they need it
Yeah.
almost more than any team we've talked about, pretty much more than any team we talked about today.
Yeah, absolutely.
But but at the same time, you look at someone like him and you're like, if you can get him to into a into some sort of deal because they've stuck with him through his ups and downs and all that for some sort of extended period of time, he's a guy you build a rotation around. So
Yeah, and that's why Getz is in a good spot with both of them. He doesn't have to do anything. These are not expiring contracts.
yeah,
There's no pressure on him to make a move at this point. There's no expectations out of the fan base that we need to do something right now. Why aren't we getting? Nobody wants to get rid of these guys right now.
yeah.
Uh, it just doesn't have to happen. That's why I don't think it's going to. Just because both on the White Sox side of things and the rest of the league side of things, I think it makes more sense next
Thankful,
year or in this
thank
offseason.
yeah. Thankfully, they got some other things they can get rid of. A lot of other players. You got the
I do.
Fadid has been very good as a starting pitcher this season. He's definitely going
It's
to
helped my
be
fantasy
traded.
team.
He's definitely going to be traded. So, and they should get a pretty decent, not like nothing huge, but some high quality players back, not like
Yeah,
number one
he's just on a
draft pick.
one
Yeah,
year deal coming back from Korea.
yeah, coming back from Korea where they fixed his problems, and they seem to
They
have.
fixed something.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's
and
looked
then
great.
you got the probably someone's gonna want the resurgence of Paul DeYoung, power
Yeah,
hitter for the White Sox.
he's
I mean,
he's your best hitter, isn't he?
well, yeah, disgustingly, yes. So that's another option there. The one that I know they're probably going to move him no matter what they get for him, but it's going to be disappointing because of all the potential upside we heard about all these years, and he was part of the rebuild trade. But Kopech will most likely be moved. Thankfully, he pitched an immaculate inning right before the All-Star break, which was shocking to me. But
Yeah.
his only consistency is that he's inconsistent. So
I
uh,
don't as an opposing from an opposing viewpoint, I would not trade for him. I wouldn't if I'm trading for him, I'm in a playoff race right now and I wouldn't trust him in my bullpen. I don't think he's going to help necessarily. Or maybe an opposing GM sees him and says the White Sox missed this. If we change this, this, and this with his delivery, he'll be fine. Maybe there's institutional arrogance in that way, like, well, we can fix him. Because the tools are there. He
yeah,
has just never put it together consistently. He's a fucking head case.
he
There's
is a head
something
case.
going
Yeah,
on, but the stuff is unreal. He just can't
yeah.
put it together.
No, I agree. So I think there's probably something there. Someone will. I mean, look at fucking Ronaldo Lopez goes to the fucking Braves as an all-star. Doesn't his ERA is like under 2. It's like 1.74.
Yeah,
That's all
he's
we
one of
heard
the best
about.
pitchers in the
He could. The
National League.
Nationals couldn't do it. The White Sox couldn't do it. But suddenly the Braves found it. So
I found something.
yeah, he just needed to get away from Giolito. I think they finally split up,
Finally,
and now he's
finally
in
split him
a
up.
rock star year.
It's like a fucking anchor.
But because I'm a fucking professional, I'm using that as a segue to my final White Sox segment, and that's
Weird.
part of the other White Sox players are no longer on the White Sox. They're also no longer on any teams, and
Oh no.
these were players who were considered part of the nucleus that we built around with these trades to take us to the next level to win a World Series.
This is sad.
But what we find right now is earlier in the season, while we were on hiatus, not too long after, Jose Abreu was sent down, and he accepted it because he knew he had to fix his swing. Well, apparently AAA didn't
The
fix his swing.
Astros.
Yeah, the Astros, and then he came back up, and then they DFA'd him. So Jose Abreu currently is out of baseball
Oh my God.
a season plus after being removed from the White Sox. And I just got to ask White Sox Twitter, how do you feel about that? Because I thought it was the right move to not resign him because he was kind of on the going on the downward slide when you look
You
at
said that for quite a while. You were
yeah.
adamant about it. It would be stupid to re-sign him, and you were totally correct.
Something I didn't see coming is is
Oof.
what year was the Field of Dreams game against the Yankees? Is that 2 years ago?
21? Maybe it was
Yeah,
22.
22 maybe.
Yeah. The
Joe
the
Buck
f-
called Tim Anderson the future of baseball, the future
yeah.
face of baseball. This is a player that is the future of Major League Baseball, and he is out of baseball.
Not even
He
in the
too
game.
was DFA'd by the Marlins. I'm not sure how much Berger might be right behind him. His batting average is like 200 right now with
I was looking at the OPS rankings, and he's in the worst 10 in all
yeah.
of baseball. Which
So
I was looking at that tonight, and it didn't even include Javi Baez, which Javi Baez is the worst by far. But maybe since he got hurt, he doesn't have
yeah,
enough
minimum
at bats to
games or
qualify.
something. Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
so, but yeah, I saw Berger down at the bottom of the list.
Yeah, but Tim Anderson got into some personal issues while he
Boy,
was on the White Sox. We don't need to get into those details, but once that happened, he just never recovered.
cratered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I thought I thought he'd have a shot with the Marlins,
yeah,
lower,
I did
it's
too.
lower pressure or whatever. Just seemed to make sense. There's a weird connection between White Sox and the Marlins. With Ozzie being the manager there, Berger getting traded there, TA going there. Burley was there at one point.
Their
It just seemed like
their old GM had White Sox ties. That female
okay.
GM they had, I can't remember
Oh, that's
the
right. Kim Eng. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and they let her go. So I mean, the Marlins have their own issues, of course, but I did not see this coming with TA, just not even being in baseball now. He doesn't deserve to be. He was that bad.
Yeah. I mean, he never got back to, he was finally looked like he had worked out all his fielding issues. And then as part of, you can at least sometimes say, like, if you lose the bat, at least and we'll use Danby Swanson as his fielding is insane. I mean, he's great, but
Mm,
TA had nothing going for him. Nothing.
yeah.
Is bad committing errors, not getting hits. I mean, this is a guy who OPS or OPP and batting average are almost the same, but they were
Yeah,
close
he
to
never
fucking
walked.
400. Like it
Yeah.
was together, riding along because he's
Yeah.
just on base all the
He was
time.
he was a dangerous, scary hitter for a long time. How it seems very recently you and I were having debates about who's the best shortstop in Chicago,
Yeah,
Javi
they both
Baez
they
or Tim
both
Anderson.
now they're the
And they're
worst.
two of the worst hitters in baseball, and one's not even in baseball right now.
Yeah.
So it's just unbelievable how quickly that all shifted.
I take no joy really in being right about any of this and in knowing that Anderson had to go and all that, but
I think you do
again,
take joy.
Well, the only thing I take joy at is White Sox Twitter is what I take joy towards because the the ignorance of pretty much 98% of that group
Uh, that's
of
Twitter in general. So,
yeah, I know, but it's so like Tim Anderson would get a hit this year and then people would post it or he'd hit his home run and like we got rid of this. Like, yeah, we got rid of
oh no.
that because same thing with Abreu. Like, you know, I don't want to harp on this, but like Abreu not playing his final game will always,
Oh yeah, we talked about that
yeah,
at
it
the
will
time. That
always
was bad.
for as far as I'm concerned, it will always be a stain on his White Sox legacy.
Yeah,
That's a fucking
that was
baby.
shitty.
Fucking baby. There's your big baby right there.
Big baby.
You just call Eloy major injury. At least I know I totally believe this. He will be in baseball's Hall of Fame, and it'll just be like a cast and his list of injuries. Eloy Jimenez
The
in
most
the
injured player of all
in
time.
baseball history. Yeah. So, well, on that happy note, I'm gonna shut it down for the White Sox. I'm gonna
Well,
flush it.
I think we need. Yeah. Well, we will wrap this show up, uh, getting away from reality and moving over to fantasy, as I think we need to talk about our fantasy teams for a minute. In fact, we'll call this segment the Fantasy Minute. You and you want to give yourself credit, but I think you and I have dominated our fantasy league to an alarming degree this season. You have spent quite a bit of time in first place, more than I have, but I have been in first. You and I currently are a half a point difference. I don't know. Are we like 25% ahead of anyone else,
Yeah, I
whatever the
think
third place team
44
is?
is the next closest team,
Yeah,
and you're
you
at
and I are both at
58.
58. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you and I are running away with it. You and I have had our win our we've definitely each won our championships. But you and I are never good at the same time, except for the very first season
Oh God,
of our
this can't
of our
happen
fantasy
again.
league.
This cannot
And
happen again.
we started in 2004. You and I had read Moneyball and decided we needed to start a fantasy league. It was based on OBP. We've subsequently changed that to OPS. I think we have the best scoring system possible in a rotisserie league.
Damn
But yeah, you and
straight.
I are fighting for it. I was tied. I was tied with you for a moment last week. Now I'm half a point back.
Do you know
So I
what?
think you.
I have a funny story for that. Sorry to interrupt you, but it's a great story. You send
Oh, go
me that.
ahead.
You send me that text,
Yeah.
and I
Well,
get
hello there.
yeah. So then like a minute and a half later, I get my fantasy alert that Brett Rooker just hit a home run, and I'm like, oh, I'm back in first by myself. So I
Uh,
immediately go out and look, and I'm like, yeah, fuck you, Smitty. Like it was so funny. I meant
clearly,
I was in the middle of something, so I couldn't like completely. I was gonna be like, well, you Brett Rooker heard you and took care of the situation.
well, I think it goes without saying you and I are going to be fighting for this championship once again. But we do have to mention that you and I tied for our inaugural league
Yeah,
championship
we
because we were
did.
too stupid to figure out a tiebreaker. We were ignorant in how rotisserie works and never dreaming that we'd end up with the exact same number of points. So you and I share the first league title in 2004. So hopefully that does not happen again. We have built in a few tiebreakers. Hopefully those work out if it does come to that situation. But
Maybe we should check in on those right now. Give me a sec. Just give me a quick second here. I will get
the
this pulled up.
tiebreakers would be who's ahead of each other in more categories.
Yeah. So let's see how that
So
is playing out right
well,
now.
you it's not even a tied right now. You've got it. You would win the
Oh, I do.
championship
Okay.
if the season would end today. Well, you're up by a half point. So I also wanted to bring up in fantasy. I've got as commissioner, as I am the sole commissioner of this league. I think you and I were co-commissioners back then. You've stepped back, and I've taken the commissioner's role. But I do need your advice.
Okay.
Uh, I need to know how to deal, and maybe people can chime in on Twitter and on Facebook or on YouTube if they can want to mention things in the. Oh, you can't mention in the comments on YouTube, but you can everywhere else. How do you deal with a deadbeat owner in fantasy leagues? We have had a player for the last several years. Let's call him Cam. Uh,
Yes, Cam. He's
I don't
also
want. I don't want to
he's
use his
also
real name, but
a he does a job that puts out fires. We won't say what that
yeah,
is.
he's a fireman. He's a hero. He always joins the league happily. Pays
He's
his
excited.
dues. He hasn't paid me yet this year, but he also doesn't pay attention to his team at all. And we're going to talk about this on the podcast, and you can give your honest thoughts because I doubt Cam is
Yeah,
listening.
Cam, not Sam.
Maybe
Cam.
maybe he is listening, but or maybe I hope he is listening because hopefully there's a light of fire in his ass because I think we have to kick him out next year. He always agrees to join the league and he never pays attention to his team. He has made 5 transactions this year, which were limited to a total of 50. But he is woefully in last place again. I think it's time to jettison Cam from our league next year. I
Yeah,
just won't. I don't think, and it's not like I'm going to tell him to fuck off. I think I just won't send him an invite,
right.
uh, and I don't think he would even notice necessarily. Since he joined the league because he's friends with your little brother, but he's kept on even after your brother quit,
Yeah,
which I thought was noble. But if you don't pay attention to the league, it kind of disrupts the integrity of the league. If somebody's got 5 people on their IL, not changing the lineup at all, I don't know. I want someone that cares about it to be in the league. So what do you agree with my plan to maybe just
I
not even extend him an invite
I
next
do.
year?
I mean,
Okay.
he's last place in every category
Yes.
except he's tied with me for save and holds, and he's 2 points in ERA. Like Charlie in
Yeah.
his first year, who I've tried
Yeah.
to
Your
stay out of
son.
it, is 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 ahead of him by 7 points, and I've had to
Yeah.
help him on the coaching of things. He just wasn't fully getting everything. So,
Well, he probably doesn't fully understand it, and he's doing better
yeah.
than Cam is. So
Yeah, he's 7 points better than Cam and is in first place in save and hold. So, at least he even is in first place in a category in his first season.
well, if anyone wants to comment on Twitter as a commissioner or decision maker in a fantasy league, if you think this is
Yeah.
draconian, if we're being too harsh, if the guy wants to pay his money and wants to play, let him play. But if he's not paying attention, I think we got to oust him from the league. So
Maybe
let
you
us know
can
in your comments.
maybe Cam can comment.
Yeah, Cam, let us know what you think. Pay
Ugh.
attention, motherfucker. Well, with that, I think we can wrap up this reunion episode. We are fucking back. It was great to talk some baseball after some tough times in each of our personal lives. I'm happy to be back. We'll be trying to do this on a weekly basis now. I don't see why we can't.
I don't
Uh,
either.
schedule. So we'll talk about the schedule. Hopefully, maybe we just start doing Thirsty Thursdays every week. So
No, I'll probably have
we'll
a
check.
fucking concert or something, but we'll
You got
see.
some concerts, so we'll see. But forgot about all that.
Don't forget about my love of music.
Well, in the meantime, you can check us out on Twitter. We have, as I mentioned at the top of the show, we have multiple feeds now. We have a Cubs feed at Cult of Cub on Twitter. We've got a Tigers feed, Bold English D, the White Sox feed, of course, as always. And I think you have over
Gigantism.
400. You have over 400 followers,
Yeah,
Sox type thing.
they
Of
like
course,
me.
many of those are Russian models that have no friends. They seem to love
Ugh,
our conversations about
they
White Sox
do.
baseball and everything
They
else.
do. They like them a
There is
lot.
your Giants comments are all at SF Gigantism on Twitter.
Yeah, get
And
there, guys. I comment about once to twice a week, so it's really exciting stuff.
well, people pay attention. You get some interaction on that, right?
I
Even
do.
in the few comments you've made. But I think now that we're going to have content every week, I'll be posting the individual segments on each of those feeds too. So that might get some. If you don't give a fuck about most of the teams we talk about, but you do care about one of them, then that's the way you can check it out via Twitter and those feeds and our YouTube page, which has a playlist for each of the teams. Makes it really simple to see just the content for those teams. So you can still check us out at majorleagueaholes.com. Sockstypething.com is gone. It's officially gone. GoDaddy tried to rip me off. We were paying like $1 a year for the domain name sockstypething.com, and they raised it to $50. And I told them to fuck off.
Fuck off.
And it was also just pointing back to the same website anyway. So just check us out on the web if you want to at majorleagueaholes.com. And you can find this podcast anywhere you'd like to find a podcast. So with that, I think we can declare this podcast is over. Peace.
Peace.
Word Hole Media.